I was the only female.
Harassment and discrimination have no place here.
The smell here is horrible. It reeks of death.
It's an illegal dump.
I gotta go the rest of my life not knowing what really happened to my kid.
He doesn't have a voice anymore, and we do.
Flooding that we've never observed before is possible.
Boil your water.
Cheers.
It was a contest for who we are and what we believe.
We don't have to live in fear.
What's going on in New York?
Hey, get your hands out of your pocket. Get your hands out of your pocket. Get your hands. Get back. Get back.
It's hard when you find out all your troubles are real. I couldn't even play guitar for it. Nearly a year after that. And I don't play like I used to. For 2 or 3 weeks, I couldn't even go in the music room. His drum set was all set up just like he had just been playing on it, you know. When he was in band and he was in percussion, I mean, it was tap, 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 all day long, all night long.
He was there until he was completely non-responsive. He was gone. Graham was really out of his head. And they said, well, he's assaulted an officer and he resisted arrest. Well, he did bite an officer.
When you try to get information from the police, what happened?
They clamped down.
What a shock. I thought a parent would have a right to records to see what the truth was. It's all captured on video. To say that you don't have a right to that is just crazy.
There's a secret tucked below this Dripping Springs welcome sign. You likely smell it before you ever see it.
Yeah, I'm looking down here. I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 deer in here that I can visibly see. And it just keeps getting worse as you walk around, and this is about 15 feet deep right here.
Jimmy Lovejoy grew up here. He played in the creeks and streams that, when it rains, flow past, through, and over this dump site.
There's bones everywhere in here.
When he spotted dozens of buzzards circling this site last fall, he got nosy.
Yeah, you know, really when you're looking at this site, you don't have the gravity of this site without the sense of smell. And the smell here is horrible. It reeks of death. It reeks of decay.
Lovejoy hid cameras at the site and within days caught the culprit on camera. The Texas Department of Transportation. After he reported it to us, we put our own cameras up, capturing TxDOT workers dumping at the site 10 different times in 2 months. Several loads of highway trash, a worker pulling a dead deer off the back of a truck. Looking for answers, we tracked down the TxDOT trucks just 6 miles away to this Hays County TxDOT garage, along with some of the workers we caught on camera. These are some of the photographs we got of this dump site. I can't see that right now, sir. You can't see it? Okay. I just want to let you know you're the man in charge of this garage, of what we. TxDOT's own policies show dead animals are supposed to be buried or taken to a licensed landfill. The same for the tires, trash, and garbage. Just days after we asked TxDOT for an interview, they sent out a cleanup crew. Do you believe this agency owes the public an apology?
Well, I'll agree that, as I stated earlier, that the materials were not disposed of properly. They're not bad materials. As I said, the asphalt materials used on roadways across the state of Texas for construction and maintenance operations. We have procedures for disposing of unneeded materials, and that was not followed.
After our questions, state environmental investigators showed up at the site to launch an investigation.
And that's the tree line back there.
Yeah. I'm standing on 10 to 12 feet of fill that's in here. What else did they dump down underneath there?
2 explosions just hours and miles apart.
It's just a tragedy.
Killing a teenager and sending 2 others to the hospital.
It is appropriate for residents to be concerned.
The warning police say everyone needs to hear tonight, now that they're linking 3 cases.
Now, breaking news from KXAN News.
We've been following breaking news all day across Austin. Police say 2 explosions today and 1 earlier this month are all related.
Interim Police Chief Brian Manley had this warning this evening.
A device like this can be hidden in many different ways, and so it's important, again, if you're not expecting a delivery and yet one shows up and it's not from someone that you do business with or that you were expecting, it's important that you call us.
We begin with Aaron Cargile, who's live near Old Fort Hill Drive, where the first explosion happened today.
A 17-year-old boy died in his home along this street. Neighbors tell us he was in high school and he was very active in church. Those same neighbors tell me it was his mother who was injured, doing something most of us don't even think twice about.
A family waking up to find a package on their front porch, taking it inside and triggering an explosion.
It was just a loud boom. And, just couldn't figure out what it was.
They think someone hand-delivered it overnight and was similar to the one that killed a man on his porch 10 days ago.
It sounded like a metal dumpster getting hit by a truck, like a very metallic, hollow sound. I ran outside, I looked to my left, and I saw him standing there, obviously damaged. He had shrapnel and his clothes were torn up and his face was torn up and whatnot.
Phillips says Anthony Stefan's house collapsed. The next-door neighbor called 911.
I went over, I gave him 2 rescue breaths to get him breathing.
We are live in Southwest Austin tonight after a serial bomber strikes again last night.
It is the 4th explosion of its kind in Austin this month. Police have lifted a lockdown on some of the streets surrounding Dawn Song Drive that had been in place since last night. Investigators waited until daylight so they could safely search the area. They say someone hit a tripwire, which set off the bomb.
Well, we are getting some breaking news right now. This is a live picture from I-35 near Old Settlers Boulevard. There has been a shooting involving police officers, and we are being told that this shooting is involving perhaps a suspect in the string of bombings that have gone on.
Tonight, we're bringing you 90 minutes of in-depth coverage on KXAN. It's the culmination of 3 weeks of fear in this city. Less than 3 hours ago, Austin police said this man, Mark Condit, confessed to the bombings in a video.
To track him down, they looked at the materials he used and where he purchased them. One of those stores was Fry's, an electronics store in North Austin, where he made a purchase late last month.
He was purchasing some battery holders such as these here.
Jen Meyer is standing in the same spot bomber Mark Condit stood just 3 days before the first bomb exploded in Austin. This February 27th surveillance video from Fry's Electronics shows Condit walk into the store and purchase more than 20 electronic parts.
In the end, Austin police say Mark Condit planted 5 homemade bombs that killed 2 people and injured 5.
Now, one of the closest people to Condit is telling his story for the first time.
KXAN investigator Aaron Cargile has more on what life was like living with the Austin bomber.
Look for the laser.
As police were closing in on Mark Condit's SUV.
All right, van's made contact with him. Van's made contact with him.
The 23-year-old
got an explosion inside the vehicle.
Took his life with one of his own bombs. Hours before, the FBI was trying to figure out if he had been working alone and zeroed in on Condit's roommates.
They handcuffed me like that, and I was sitting down like this, and then they took my phone away.
Colin Thomas took me back to the spot where he was detained.
They kept asking me about my roommate multiple times.
Thomas had been living with Condit for just 6 months and says they met through mutual friends.
Where was he making the bombs?
I think he was making his room. I don't think they probably done it anywhere else. And that's what scared me, after the fact that I could have died. One little mistake, boom.
TxDOT still blaming dozens of customers for many of those massive text tag late fees we've been investigating for months. We took your bills straight to the top of TxDOT for answers, and they told us the bulk of the problems stem from customers failing to update their address. But as KXAN investigator Brittany Glass uncovered, TxTag has a way to make sure addresses are accurate. It's just not always doing it, and it might be costing you.
Because I don't drive the toll roads, I automatically knew this is not for me.
Andrew Wheeler is largely confined to a wheelchair.
I haven't owned a car in probably a good 30 years.
He says it doesn't make sense he's been receiving text tag bills over the past year for multiple drivers he doesn't know at his own home address where he's lived for nearly 2 decades.
These poor guys, they have, I'm sure, not a clue that there's some outstanding bill that they haven't received,
One of those bills was meant for this man, Nathan Fryer.
I don't even understand how that works. Like, how is he tied to me at all? That's a little alarming.
Especially since Fryer doesn't even own the vehicle listed on the bill anymore. He sold it early last year, then the new owner sold it again, all verified through the state's Department of Motor Vehicles. But the bill still went to the wrong address.
They're still racking up bills in my name.
Hundreds of complaints to our investigative team and a nearly year-long KXAN investigation. The Texas Department of Transportation is now waiving more than $1 billion of debt. 2.2 million accounts were sent to collections last year alone.
Tonight, a KXAN investigation takes our team hundreds of miles from the state capitol to the plains of West Texas.
You've actually got to get on the ground and go get them.
Searching for proof.
This is probably the most critical document of the entire day.
Inside a massive industry pumping billions of tax dollars into your schools, roads, and recovery each year.
It's the oil or nothing around here.
A vast oil empire of money.
There needs to be transparency. There needs to be disclosure.
Power.
What I saw was clearly appearance of bias.
And ethics.
There's only 3 of us, and we regulate the biggest industry in the state.
Those 3 leaders elected statewide make up the Texas Railroad Commission.
Perhaps the most powerful government agency in Texas, it has a misleading name. It has nothing to do with railroads, but everything to do with regulating Texas oil and gas.
The commission's chair, Christy Craddock, is up for re-election next month. And in her first term, her well-known family profited off of oil companies linked to her own votes on the commission.
If you're really quiet and hold your breath, you can stand pretty much anywhere in West Texas and hear the heartbeat of the Texas economy. It's a 24/7 operation, and lots of people are striking black gold right now.
Oh, yeah.
Like Sergio Ortiz.
You see the dollars rolling here, right? Yes, sir.
He's become one of the most popular men in this West Texas oil patch. His family owns this tire repair shop in the town of Big Lake, a shop he almost closed 3 years ago when the oil boom busted.
There have been some pretty downtimes that it's been where I don't know if we want to be doing this anymore. Me and my wife actually had to sit down and think about, like, is it worth it?
Now, as the U.S. oil supply shifts in Texas's favor, this area is seeing some of the highest per barrel prices in years. The Ortiz family can tell it too. They can barely stock enough tires to keep up with the tens of thousands of trucks rolling through each day.
It's the oil or nothing around here.
This meeting, the Railroad Commission of Texas, will come to order.
Christy Craddock is the first Craddock to chair the Railroad Commission, but the family name spans decades in Texas government.
Have all voted members.
Her father, Tom Craddock, was the Texas House Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, members, back to my explanation.
Today, he's Midland's state representative. The Craddock oil businesses go back just as far, with oil interests spread across 22 Texas counties. Records we found show Christy Craddock holds potentially millions of dollars in oil interests. Not that surprising. It's what she's voted on as chair of this regulatory body that got our attention. Our investigative team traveled into the heart of Craddock country. We made the trip because tracking the family's oil interests is complicated, since only a couple counties post the records for the public to see online. We drove a few thousand miles, made stops in a dozen West Texas courthouses, searched through decades of land and oil records, and uncovered evidence that Christy Craddock and her family are doing personal business with many of the oil companies she regulates from her seat of power.
Those items are approved.
Archived video shows Christy Craddock cast votes in favor of those same companies. Since 2014, Craddock voted more than 400 times on agendas related to those companies, and records show no evidence Craddock ever disclosed her ties.
Just before 6 a.m. and all eyes are here on a potentially record devastating flood in the hill country. Lake Marble Falls is a river this morning as the Highland Lakes are trying to pass all this water downstream from Llano River through Lake LBJ, through Lake Marble Falls, and eventually into Lake Travis.
River flood warnings continue for the Llano River right now through Mason County, through Llano County, and then this is what happens with the Llano River. It dumps into Lake LBJ right here.
At this level, numerous homes and businesses are already flooding. The Llano County Emergency Manager is telling us that they have evacuations and rescues ongoing.
Look, right here, take a look over here, Julie. You can see RVs pulling out right now. This, I'm telling you, this is right next to the Kingsland Slab RV Park.
Look at that. That's a haunting sight, guys. That is what, the third unoccupied boat now that we've seen. The rain keeps redeveloping along some type of boundary. The cold front at the surface, let's imagine the atmosphere as a deep thing.
There's a boat that's trying to get
Let's go back live.
Let's take Candy's picture.
And there's a jet ski.
Look at that.
Ski, I don't know, there's a boat, but it just barely made it under that bridge.
Look at this. Another boat. Severely damaged. Look at that. It looks like the top of the boat, the tower, the wakeboard tower, has been sheared off of this.
We also have video of that boat that we just talked about, the one going over
Starkey Dam. Let's watch that boat go over Starkey Dam a few minutes ago.
Oh, my
goodness. Right below me, you're looking at the rooftop right there of the River City Grill. Look at the water. Look at the whirlpools that are forming on the edge of Lake Marble Falls.
Travis up 6 feet today. That's since midnight.
That's 182 Olympic-sized swimming pools every minute.
These are all in Granite Shoals and all areas in which local officials are asking you to evacuate.
Is this a deck from
Let's get in on that
We're about
deck
to see
here.
a deck. Yeah, we're about to see a deck go over the dam.
This is obviously somebody's
Came off the
lakefront
back
property.
of a house, maybe, yeah.
Our house next to us is about 5 feet below us, and the water is up to their porch.
I woke up early this morning. My intuition told me to get up, but I didn't, okay? My son called me, and by the time he called me, it was too late already. The water's already receded in over the boat slip.
I see the smoke, and I asked the gentleman, I said, hey, what is that? And he tells me, he's like, oh, it's a structure fire, and firefighters can't get to it because of the high water on the road. And
because the home that was on fire was surrounded by floodwaters on all sides, the fire department couldn't get to it.
The 2900 bridge has collapsed, which is in Llano County, but it has collapsed.
That bridge completely washed away. Now we also know, again, 1431 is shut down.
Some of this bridge is now going down the Llano River.
A few minutes ago, floating down Lake LBJ. There it is right there.
Devastating flooding has forced hundreds from their homes in the Texas Hill Country.
Rain has caused the Llano River to rise, creating the second worst flooding in history.
11.8 inches in southeast Mason County, 11.4, 11.6 in western Llano County.
Drone video of the water rushing past the Highway 71 bridge in Llano. Emergency crews closed down the bridge as water rose just a few feet below the deck.
And take a look at this video right here. Just a great example of the river's power. This is Starkey Dam.
From the air showing the water inside homes along Lake Marble Falls. Evacuation orders remain in effect there for selected areas.
Video shows homes being flooded in Kingsland. This one comes in to us from Tracy Smith through our Report It at KXAN.com. Keep those videos and pictures coming.
Across town, first responders use military-grade vehicles to bring supplies to the Meadow Lakes and Pecan Valley communities. Both are cut off and surrounded by water.
City leaders tell me anywhere between 75 and 85 homes are flooded here in Marble Falls.
At the moment, I'm standing on what should be a driveway that you would take normally to get to these houses over here. People were evacuating, and at the same time, a deer was actually trying to get out of the water.
DPS hopped in boats, rescuing people from their homes.
Today, our cameras were rolling as a woman was being escorted to safety in Kingsland. A tough, tough day for many people, many of our friends and viewers.
And this rescue, a student and a driver saved from a bus floating away in rising floodwaters. We spoke to the boy's mother, and she told us he was in hysterics. He called her, and while it was all happening, told her he thought he was going to die.
I heard, help me, and I was real faint. And it's like, did I just hear that?
Another person with them spotted the man.
He was out about where that's our dock that was over here, and now it's just out there, but it was about that far away.
It was emotional. But he made it.
If you ever make a trip down Ranch Road 32 near Blanco, you'll pass this sign. Caitlin Duvall adopted this highway in May, but she never got the chance to do what her family's doing with it now. Duvall went into the Cedar Park Cosmetic Surgery Center last July. 4 days later, she was dead. Did Caitlin have any health problems that would have made a surgery like this a risk?
Oh, no, she didn't. No.
When she went in for this procedure, this was a healthy 26-year-old woman.
Extremely, yeah.
The family only recently learned results of the autopsy. It shows the cause of death as complications of cosmetic surgical procedure. The medical examiner wrote, Caitlin developed a toxic shock-like syndrome. That's a complication of certain bacterial infections. And despite aggressive therapy at the hospital, ER doctors couldn't save her life. But there's something her family only recently learned when we contacted them. The doctor who performed Caitlin's liposuction was under investigation by the Texas Medical Board for a procedure he did on another patient in 2016.
No clue. No.
The case against Dr. Lawrence Broder was not made public until a month after Caitlin's death, 17 months after the board received the original complaint that sparked his review in the first place.
How would I know that information? That's not open to the public.
In Texas, complaints against doctors become public only after the board finishes investigating and only if it determines the claim has merit. We discovered that typically takes about 300 days on average. Meanwhile, leaving patients in the dark and allowing doctors to continue practicing.
That is going to make the ocean rise over my head. It might also produce literally a year's worth of rainfall on the Texas coast over the next 2 to 3 days. This is one of the sturdiest shelters we've got in town. Check it out. They are lowering the hurricane shutters, literally battening down the hatches. 130-mile-an-hour winds is what we're listening to. We've seen pieces of sheet metal 20 by 20 feet wide. You might even see some debris flying by here.
Nearly 9 months after KXAN meteorologist David Yeomans braved Hurricane Harvey on the Texas coast, and people there are still picking up the pieces left after the storm.
You can't describe it. It's like, it's everything. Your memories, everything is just gone. It's all we owned. It's all we had. And this stuff now you'll never get back.
Carol Runyon's stuff lost.
It's a close-up of what used to be a guest bedroom.
But not Al, her husband, who stayed behind.
I saved the dogs, but not the house.
I wanted to leave. He did not. I had the brains to get up and go.
Stay here and take care of things.
It was 2 more days before we got him out.
The storm took more than just their home.
He got an infection in his foot that turned sepsis. They revived him 3 times. They amputated below the knee.
The only thing that bothers me is my leg.
Now recovering in a FEMA trailer until their new house is ready. A little stronger.
We're making new memories now. I'll never forget this.
And a little higher. But others aren't so fortunate.
If you're the individual experiencing and waiting for the help, it's frustrating and it's slow.
Mike Kerner heads up the team that's getting the Texas coast back on its feet.
It's a long-term recovery, so it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. We predict 3-5 years.
Buildings are still damaged and dumpsters still visible.
3.7 million cubic yards of debris have been removed from this county.
Go inside the state capitol every week with State of Texas. Exclusive one-on-one interviews with state leaders.
We believe in common sense conservative principles, and that's who Texas is.
Insider access as laws are passed.
And I'm here with Governor Greg Abbott. Thanks for joining us.
Sure, of course. Thank you.
And in-depth stories revealing the politics shaping our state.
The leading defining immigrant experience is the Texas experience.
State of Texas.
Parents and children separated after illegally crossing the U.S.-Mexico border.
We're going to keep families together, but we still have to maintain toughness or our country will be overrun.
The president signs an executive order to stop that controversial policy, the first step in passing new immigration laws. And with the order in place, when will families be reunited?
The federal government is the one responsible when they capture these kids. We're ready to take the kids to their parents.
As the conflict continues, some local Texas leaders are traveling to that same federal tent city in Tornillo, south of El Paso, for a first-hand look. Our own Phil Prazen joined Austin's mayor and council as they brace for some of those children possibly ending up in Austin. Phil?
Well, Josh, I'm 575 miles away in the city of El Paso, and what happens here on the border does impact the city of Austin, because what federal officials are doing now is they're taking the children that have been separated from their parents and they're spreading them across the country, including 138 children who have been placed in Travis County.
Austin City Councilman Greg Kassar drove to Tornillo and was front and center. He wanted to know why other elected officials had been allowed to see the children, but these city officials were not.
Any person at all on site in the facility, even if we were to wait some amount of time.
Sorry, and I can just tell you what I'm telling.
Southwest Key, headquartered in Austin, has received a lot of criticism about its housing just over 5,000 children. Our Steffi Lee spoke with the group's CEO about crowding and safety concerns and what's next.
State records show, several violations within several of your facilities, dealing with healthcare, dealing with children getting into physical altercations.
It's just a human possibility that some of these standards are going to not be met.
Many Republican lawmakers have actually spoken out against these separations, like House Speaker Joe Strauss. He asked the president to end the policy.
It doesn't seem like this is going to be resolved anytime soon.
I mean, we live murder and mayhem day in and day out.
How many homicide cases have you been involved in?
Well, to date, I've assisted with the investigation of over 300.
As lead investigator in the Austin Homicide Unit, Detective David Fugit is relentless.
I'm always thinking about what has been done, what else can be done. This affects every aspect of our lives.
On behalf of all of us, thank you, David.
He solves some of Austin's most horrific crimes.
With the evolving technology, we're able to process those crime scenes faster, and we're able to solve crimes
much faster than when he started.
If somebody told you 15 years ago as a detective fresh on the scenes of the homicides that we would one day have this kind of technology today, what would you say?
I wouldn't even imagine. I wouldn't have been able to even wrap my head around it.
Detective Fugit can now send microscopic DNA found at the scene of a murder to this lab. It takes that DNA and uses software called Snapshot to predict what the suspect may look like, putting a face to the crime and narrowing down the suspect pool.
They can give us information on a person's ancestry, eye color, hair color, whether the person has freckles, skin tone, even the shape of a person's face.
What used to take investigators days to map out a crime scene can now take minutes with this, a 3D laser scanner. It scans millions of points a minute using light to create a 3D model like this. It virtually freezes a crime scene so investigators can access it anytime. Detective Fugit says they used it in the investigation of Austin's serial bomber to better understand the exploding packages at front doors.
We basically placed it at the seat of the explosion, and we're able to map that scene in hours and capture all those points. And we can now, weeks later, go back and look at the diagrams that it produced and determine, the trajectory and where the individual was standing when the bomb was set off.
And the use of drones in investigations has become as widespread as this research field in San Marcos.
This is a 26-acre body decomposition outdoor research lab, and this is where scientists are using drones to search for a body in a field, even figure out how long a person has been dead.
Allegations of sexual harassment and discrimination inside the Texas Department of Transportation, part of a 5-month investigation into this massive state agency of more than 11,000 workers, where fewer than a quarter are women.
Those who have come forward with complaints are often left with little to no resolution, some filing costly lawsuits, others saying they left or were forced out of the agency altogether.
I started out hanging signs, striping roads, swinging a sledgehammer. I had a goal, and I took a lot of pride in the work.
After a decade of road and maintenance work at TxDOT, Tracy Martinez said she'd had enough. In a complaint filed last year, she alleges gender discrimination and sexual harassment against coworkers and her supervisor.
TxDOT preaches that they are a family. So I'm thinking after 10 years, I'm with my family. I can express to them, that I am uncomfortable with certain situations and not get ignored.
TxDOT data shows right now just 14% of employees in the Waco district where Martinez worked are women. There are no female officials or administrators, according to the agency. In her complaint, Martinez says at times she felt her supervisor belittled her in front of coworkers and gave her more tasks and responsibilities without compensation or promotion. She also spells out repeated concerns over inappropriate drug testing procedures, where she says she was the only woman in a room full of men expected to hold her urine in her hand in front of those male coworkers. It didn't stop there. She alleges the men had vulgar nicknames for daily exercises.
One of them entailed bending over and touching your toes, and they called it the promotion. The evaluations began to get threatened if we didn't do the stretches.
She says she refused to participate in activities, including those exercises, and believes that led TxDOT to fire her.
They robbed me of my retirement.
In the past 5 years, TxDOT workers across the state have filed complaints with more than 200 allegations of sexual harassment, discrimination, and retaliation against the agency and its leadership.
With the majority of complaints, including Martinez, TxDOT investigated but took no disciplinary action.
It seems to me there's not a lot of concern about a person or the issue once the person has made a complaint. And perhaps this is quite discouraging.
Are these allegations and complaints something that you will be addressing in future hearings?
There need to be vast improvements in this area and benchmarks put in place, and not just put in place, but actually used in order to stamp out and to eliminate these kinds of problems.
No rhyme and no reason.
There was no indication of why these specific addresses and those that were delivered to homes or those that were placed in the community or those that were mailed. There was no reason given for why he selected those individuals.
The mood tonight as Austin moves forward following a string of deadly attacks from a serial bomber.
And this has been the very real terror Austin has dealt with for the last 3 weeks. The first deadly attack happened in northeast Austin on Haverford Drive. Austin police initially thought a package bomb placed overnight was an isolated incident. 10 days later, a pair of package bombs in east and southeast Austin. Another death, 2 others hurt. This is when we first realized this is a serial bomber. Less than a week later, a change in MO with a tripwire bomb in southeast Austin that injured 2 people. Then yesterday, a package bomb exploded on a conveyor belt at a FedEx facility in Schertz, hurting 1 woman. Investigators say it was mailed from Austin and bound for Austin. Later in the day, a FedEx facility in Austin near the airport was evacuated for a suspicious package. There was a bomb inside a package there. The FedEx facility on McKinney Falls Parkway is prepared to evacuate again, if need be. A suspicious package call today forced the facility to shut down this morning for the 2nd day in a row.
Mayor Steve Adler says he is taking a lesson from what's happened in Austin over the last several weeks, and he shared a message to everyone in Austin about what to do moving forward.
I think it is real important as a community that we use this moment. The legacy of this event for us should be that we walk across the street and introduce ourselves to our neighbors, or down the street or across the hall. We should know our neighbors better than we do. And if we do that, we will be a stronger and better community, and we will have advanced from this time.
The deaths that occurred here were random and meaningless and absolutely something that we can't ever get our heads around. But we reacted in a way that I would hope every citizen would want us to react, and I'm proud to be here today to say we got it done.
Live look across the city of Austin, downtown. This is the first night since the start of the month when the city and all of Central Texas are able to breathe a sigh of relief, but there's still more work that needs to be done as investigators comb through evidence into these bombings.
And we start here on KXAN News at 10 o'clock with the latest on the bombs investigation in Pflugerville. Streets still remain blocked off as crews continue their work at the suspect's house.
23-year-old Mark Anthony Condit, Austin police and federal investigators saying tonight they found where they say Condit made the explosives Authorities also say they have what they need, what they claim, rather, amounts to a video confession.
In it, they say Condit details all of the bombs he made and used. That includes the bomb investigators say he detonated when they caught up with him overnight on I-35. The bomb detonated in Condit's car, ultimately killing him.
Here's a look at the focus of the investigators this evening outside of Condit's home in Pflugerville. Our KXAN drone video showing as close as we could getting into the evacuation area there for that view. And today, KXAN investigators have also been piecing together the additional steps police took to track down this suspect. We've learned the FBI was able to match his cell phone pings to each of the bombing sites.
And they were able to identify him on surveillance video at stores where he dropped off packages and bought bomb-making supplies. Eyewitnesses there were also able to help police pinpoint his car, which led them to his driver's license and then, more importantly, his identity.
And then to track him down, they looked at the materials he used and where he purchased them. One of those stores was Fry's, an electronics store in North Austin, where he made a purchase late last month.
And tonight, a store manager tells KXAN investigator Jody Barr receipts at Fry's matched a credit card at the hotel where the suspect might have been staying.
He was purchasing some battery holders such as these here.
Jen Meyer is standing in the same spot bomber Mark Condit stood just 3 days before the first bomb exploded in Austin. This February 27th surveillance video from Fry's Electronics shows Condit walk into the store and purchase more than 20 electronic parts. Condit spends nearly 20 minutes inside before paying for the items and walking out the door.
So the ATF comes in with a subpoena in hand. What were they looking for from you?
They were looking for any invoices that we may have and any purchases or surveillance video that we may have on him.
What did those invoices show was purchased here?
It showed approximately 20 small components. Again, the battery packs and some other resistors and stuff of that nature.
Is this an odd purchase at the time? Is this something that people would just ordinarily purchase?
No, we do have a lot of people that come in and buy components, so it's not that unusual that he was making these purchases.
By the time of the subpoena, investigators had already collected parts from the bombs that had already exploded around Austin. Meyer says she turned over a list of receipts from 30 different customers who bought similar items as Condit. It wasn't until that FedEx surveillance video that investigators had a name of the prime suspect to match up with one of those invoices and the surveillance videos at Fry's Electronics.
Did the investigators ever clue you in that, hey, some of these components may be involved in this bombing investigation?
Yes, they did tell us that.
When you watch that video back again, this just looks like any ordinary customer interacting with your employees here, checked out at the register. Nothing looked out of place.
Correct. He looked like hundreds of customers we have every day.
Jody Barr, KXAN Investigates.
But it wasn't just those purchases that led law enforcement to the hotel where Condit was staying. As we mentioned, KXAN investigators have also learned cell phone triangulation played a big part. That's when a cell phone's location data is collected from nearby cell towers. Today, with the prevalence of 4G technology, it's more effective than ever. It helps GPS track the phone within 5 to 10 feet. It can also provide historical location details. It can even ping the phone, forcing it to reveal its exact location.
One of the pieces of evidence police tell us they have tonight is a video message they say Condit left. Here's what APD Chief Brian Manley said about that tonight in an exclusive new interview with NBC.
You know, he didn't say that it was part of a larger plan or that he was escalating or doing things differently. I'm not sure if there was any intention on his part to change the mechanisms or if his approach was to just show us he could do it any way he wanted. It's not clear to us yet where he learned, but there's so much information available, whether it be in just books or whether it be on the internet. But that is something that will come up as well as we look further into his background and who he was prior to becoming the person that bombed our city.
Tonight, the crime scene has dramatically shrunk, and we are getting a better look at Condit's home.
Aaron Cargyle live in Pflugerville at the scene with new details.
Good evening. This is the closest that we have been to his home. We're getting a much better view of investigators doing their work here. I'm going to step out of the way so you can see exactly what I'm seeing. They've got a big, bright spotlight out here so they can keep working on into the night. I can see a crime scene van. I've seen ATF and FBI agents processing the scene, some of them wearing jumpsuits. We are told explosive experts found lots and lots of bomb-making materials inside Condon's home, all confined to one room. We also got a chance to talk to his next-door neighbor today. She remembers the day he moved in. She invited him over, said he always seemed like a very nice young man.
Realizing that, yeah, he was in my home and I didn't feel threatened in any way. He was very nice. But whatever was going through his mind that caused him to want to do these things, you do start to think about, wow, every day we back out of our driveway and almost end up in his driveway because the street's so small. What kept him, I guess, from wanting to hurt us?
And she is one of very few neighbors that still cannot return to their home tonight. There's just a small section of homes right next to Condon's home where those folks still have to be evacuated. The rest of this neighborhood, they've been given the all clear. Also, just to paint you a picture of really how these investigators are working around the clock, they've got a lot of amenities out here that you don't even think about. Portable restrooms, also the Red Cross out here. We're serving dinner to neighbors and law enforcement just so they don't even have to leave, don't even have to miss a beat. We don't know how much longer that they are going to be out here. Of course, we'll let you know when this neighborhood is completely clear. Back to you.
All right, Erin, thanks so much. We appreciate all your reporting. A friend of the Condit family read a statement on their behalf earlier regarding everything that has happened.
The family is grieved both for their loss and also for the loss of those affected by these heinous actions. The family's present focus is on dealing with their shock and loss and in cooperating with the police investigation. If you are a praying person, please join us in praying for the families of all who have lost loved ones.
Bomb-sniffing dogs searched Condit's parents' home today as well. Police said that they have been fully cooperating.
They've gone above and beyond to answer any questions that we've had. They're having a difficult time as well. And, they wanted to express their condolences to the families of those that have been affected.
We've been working to learn more about Mark Condit and a possible motive. KXAN's Jacqueline Powell has been looking into his background.
And Jacqueline, what have you discovered?
Well, we've been reaching out to friends of Mark Condit today, trying to learn anything else that we can. We were able to talk to a couple of people who were in homeschool groups with him. They said knowing who he was growing up, they are completely shocked.
As police spent hours searching through Mark Condit's house and his childhood home, friends say the person they knew growing up here was nothing like the man they're now hearing about in the media.
I woke up this morning and had about 10 reporters telling me that my friend was a serial murderer.
Childhood friend Jeremiah Jensen told Dallas's KERA radio he and Condit grew up going to church together. He said while they grew close, Condit could struggle socially at times.
He could come off as kind of dominant and pugnacious in conversation. However, as he got to know you and as he became more comfortable over the couple of years that I knew him, he started to soften.
But Jensen insists
he's not a psychopath. Something broke him, and I don't know what that was.
Fellow homeschoolers say Condit didn't show any warning signs when they were younger.
I was shocked out of my mind. I saw the photo, I think it was on Yahoo, and I was like, oh my God, I know that guy.
That woman, who asked to stay anonymous, grew up in a homeschooling group with Condit. She says she's read posts online critical of homeschooling, saying a more isolated childhood could have contributed to Condit's alleged actions.
The idea that homeschoolers are more sheltered or don't have as many social opportunities as traditional schoolers do is a myth. I think that our parents proactively make sure that we have opportunities to network with our peers.
You won't be able to find any of Condit's social media accounts online. It appears they've all been scrubbed. But there is a blog of his out there that he wrote for a class while attending ACC. In it, he wrote about his political views. While he said he wasn't necessarily politically inclined, he did describe himself as conservative. He said he was against abortion and same-sex marriage and for the death penalty. He also said he believed the sex offender registry should be done away with. Sydney?
All right, Jacqueline, thank you. And as we mentioned, Condit was a homeschooled student. The president of the Texas Homeschool Coalition Association said that the organization is praying for the families of the victims and the Condits. In a statement, officials said, quote, no form of education, public or private, can keep such a tragedy like this from happening.
This campaign of fear across Austin claimed 2 lives and injured 5 others. Anthony House died in the first blast. Draylon Mason was killed in the second day of the attacks. Those who know the Masons spoke out about the loss, and now that this chapter of violence has ended. KXAN's Candy Rodriguez is live. And Candy, what did they tell you tonight?
Robert, Pastor Gary Renfro here at Corinth Missionary Baptist Church in East Austin says Draylon was an intelligent, focused, and loving young man who was destined for greatness. Tonight, a sigh of
relief.
After authorities stopped the bomber, 23-year-old Mark Anthony Condit.
Glad to know that it has come to an end. An unfortunate end in that he took his own life, but still that it has come to an end.
Corinth Missionary Baptist Church Pastor Gary Renfro says the family of Draylon Mason says they're thankful for law enforcement's hard work and the community's support, and say finding the person responsible for the bombings has brought some closure.
But I believe the fact that it's over, it's done with, that we don't have to live in fear. I think that is something that we can all rest easy and breathe a sigh of relief.
But they're still searching for answers.
Why? Where did this come from? Why them? Why others? And so we're waiting to find out what they can uncover.
Tonight, Draylon's mother is still recovering from injuries sustained during the explosion on March 12th. Draylon's funeral will take place next Saturday on March 31st at Greater Mount Zion Baptist Church here in East Austin. We're live tonight in East Austin. Candy Rodriguez, KXAN News.
What everybody looks for is a motive. People want to understand why. And, you know, we're never going to really find a rational reason for people that do such irrational acts.
Trying to make sense of something so senseless. Austin investigators continue to piece together the case in these deadly bombings, and the attention and efforts of this case may finally lead to a permanent decision for APD's top spot. Now the community is pushing the city to make sure Interim Chief Brian Manley stays in charge.
I just hope and pray to God that this is the end of that.
And that sentiment tonight from a person who stayed at a hotel near the scene, speaking for an entire city. Obviously, a lot of lives have been disrupted in Pflugerville because of those evacuations.
Here's a look at the area where people were told to get out at the largest point today. You can see 2 circles on the map, a 4- and 6-block radius that were evacuated, but the all clear has been given just a little bit of an hour ago, and KXAN's Eugene Cho has more on that from Pflugerville. Eugene?
Yeah, Robert and Sydney, many families in this neighborhood told me today was a day filled with uncertainty and anxiety. Now, some families could start coming back home around 4:30, 5 o'clock today. They told me they were just relieved that they can sleep in their own beds tonight. A sense of normalcy.
I've got supper in the crock pot here. I'm fixing to eat in about 30 minutes. I sure was glad they opened up streets.
Returned slowly to West Main Street and Pflugerville.
My stomach I was very uneasy for hours.
These neighbors told us they got a 20-minute heads up.
I got a call.
Oh, okay.
That came on the home phone. It said immediate evacuation. And then I looked at the phone like what is this?
To pack up and leave.
He was real courteous, very. Helped me close up and lock up and get out.
Authorities marked each house with blue tape after people left. Several businesses had signs like this up on their door. Some people who work from home also affected.
My guys had to take all the trucks home and we couldn't finish the day out, and it just made it, hard to get things done with us not being able to be here because it's a home office.
Many neighbors told us they understand why they had to evacuate. They say it's a day filled with anxiety they won't soon forget.
Things like this happen all over the world, and until it's next door, I don't know how I'm gonna. I mean, I'll probably just be more vigilant of watching people
And said, this is a beautiful day. And I looked at the sun and I said, you have to appreciate this every day.
Again, many streets in this neighborhood are back open tonight, but as you can see here, investigations are ongoing at the bomber's house. So officials emphasized just make sure to stay away from this property. Back to you.
All right, Eugene Cho, thanks so much. From the governor to Austin's former police chief, Brian Manley, the interim chief at the Austin Police Department, has been lauded as the right person to take over the role permanently.
KXAN's Phil Prazen looks into how council members are calling for action and what's left to do.
The new city manager has the power here. He will recommend someone to council, and then they will approve or veto that choice. Kronk told me that he's witnessed incredible leadership in these past few days, but their focus right now is on the investigation into the bombings. Kronk doesn't expect a decision for a few weeks. 6 council members tell me they would vote to approve Manley. Ann Kitchen and Mayor Adler say they're fans but didn't commit. Houston and Renteria haven't responded. Alter didn't want to comment.
Seeing Chief Manley and in action once again, being very professional. He's so humble. It's hard for him to receive praise. I think he just does a great job.
But Councilwoman Garza wrote a post on the City of Austin Council Forum saying we don't need to search for qualified candidates. We have one already.
The only thing I think that's gotten in the way was the process of finding a new city manager. I really do think, from the feel I've gotten from comments from other council members, that there is the support to have Chief Manley be our permitted chief.
Many want quick action, but it still could be a few weeks. Phil Prazen, KXAN News.
Today, former Austin Police Chief Art Acevedo tweeted making Manley his successor officially was long overdue. Acevedo, of course, now the Houston police chief.
And we do have some other news we want to mention for you tonight. 2 people were killed in a 4-vehicle crash near Liberty Hill. The Williamson County Sheriff's Office tells us it happened on US 183 near Christine Lane just after 5 o'clock this evening. The crash shut down traffic in both directions for more than 2 hours. All lanes are now open. We're told one person was also taken to the hospital by helicopter. No word on that person's condition yet.
Jim's here with the weather, and we had a beautiful day.
Turned out really nice after kind of a cold morning this morning. It won't be as cold in the morning. Our weather pattern is transitioning right now. Temperatures out there pretty nice, actually, at this hour. Low and middle 60s across the region. Skies over Austin mostly clear. It is 66 degrees. The view of downtown from our Embassy Suites downtown weather camera, just south of the river there, looking up toward the Capitol, obviously. 66 and mostly clear at Mabry. Out at the airport, it is 64. Skies are mostly clear. Dew points are now coming up because we've got a wind off the Gulf of Mexico. 7 to 11 miles per hour on average out of the south-southeast. They're gusting up near 20 miles per hour. Might see enough moisture in here for a brief bout of a low cloudiness in the morning, but shouldn't be around too long. Sunrise in the morning is 7:33. Pollen count, this looks like spring. Oak, high, mold, elm, sycamore, all medium. Page 2. Cottonwood, grass, poplar, hackberry. Page 3. Ash, birch, willow, and mulberry, all of those last 4 there in the low category. Around the state tonight, 50s and 60s, some 70s down along the Rio Grande. Has some high clouds out in West Texas. Otherwise, it's real nice right now. Real stormy in the east. Another nor'easter, the 4th in 4 weeks, canceling 3,000 plus flights in the northeast. There's half a foot of snow in Central Park tonight. Queens in New York, nearly a foot of snow, and it's still snowing. On the west coast, a storm that produced a tornado in California tonight. You don't hear that very often. Flash flood watches and warnings out there, and that just continues because of this blocking ridge of high pressure. Whenever it's stormy on one coast or both like it is tonight, our weather tends to be real nice, and it's going to be as this high shifts east over the next couple of days. We will see a change, though, later as that storm on the west coast does gradually make its way into the Rockies. But that will come not until late in the weekend for us. We have our first chance of rain showing up on Sunday. We're just putting in a 20% chance on Sunday. Most of the weekend should be dry. Monday, also a chance of some showers as the Gulf continues to open up and that moisture comes in. By Tuesday, a little more of that energy making its way our way, an increasing chance of rain and thunderstorms. Wednesday, morning rain and thunderstorms. Afternoon, some rain and thunderstorms. And the new week 2 forecast indicates it may continue beyond that into week 2. And our forecast rain totals mainly next Tuesday, Wednesday. According to one model here, 1 inch to 2 inches of rain. We could sure use that. There will probably be a low risk of some severe storms, though, too, so we'll be monitoring that for you. Overnight tonight, 40s in many rural places, 50s elsewhere for lows, and then tomorrow afternoon, all of us up near 80 degrees. Tonight in Austin, 50 the low, mostly clear, maybe some low clouds in the morning, then partly sunny, and a high of about 79, maybe 80. Here's the 7-day forecast. 82 on Friday. Mighty Texas Dog Walk looking good on Saturday. I think the Dell Match Play event will go off without a hitch through the weekend. Best chance of rain and thunderstorms coming Tuesday, Wednesday next week. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Day one of the WGC Dell Technologies Match Play. 3 days of round-robin, head-to-head match play. And what a match it was between Luke List and Justin Thomas. 18th hole, Thomas has a tough bunker shot, can't even see. He's leading in the match, and he hits a great bunker shot. But you see, Luke List bent his putter. If you bend it, you can't use it. That was on the 7th hole. So he putted with a wedge. Look at that. And still extended the match all the way to the final hole. Missed that one, and Thomas advances with the victory today. Jordan Spieth beat Charles Schwartzel. Remember last year he lost his first match of the 3 and didn't make it to the weekend. That's Bernd Wiesberger. He knocks off defending champ Dustin Johnson. Jason Day won 2 years ago. He won his match against James Hahn. And then there's new daddy Sergio Garcia wearing the pink for his daughter Azalea, and he makes the putt on the final hole to win his match. And Johnny Vegas, the former Longhorn, he needed that putt on 18 to pick up half a point against Brian Harmon.
You know, that's kind of what you practice for those type of moments. But obviously a little bit of pressure because, I mean, you know that if you make it, it could be an important part at the end of the week. So, you know, but it's fun.
You have to essentially win every single match to advance. I mean, there will be instances where people will lose matches in advance out of group stage, but it's a win or go home type situation in my mind, and got the job done today.
Difficult tournament to keep track of because we don't know who's leading. Just have winners and losers and even a tie today. They'll play again tomorrow.
All right, Roger, thank you. We'll be right back.
Recapping our top story tonight, the continuing investigation into bomber Mark Anthony Condit. Police telling us he blew himself up overnight in a confrontation with police in Round Rock along I-35.
At this point, law enforcement are confident that they have accounted for every bump, but they do want you to still remain vigilant. We have continuing coverage on KXAN.com, and we'll have the latest on KXAN News today starting at 4:30.
And a reminder for Chicago PD fans who missed it tonight, it will be airing tonight at 2 a.m., Thursday morning at 2 a.m., so set your DVRs.
Have a good night.